We can have a okay, great. So sitting somewhere at a fancy park somewhere in Kitchener, enjoying the nice, I don't want to call this a warm weather, nice cool weather actually. And I was just with me some of the fantastic events that has been happening. Really excited that we can have even with all the summer activities happening right now, this number of participants on today's session. So we have in our midst Trami Zarabura. I trust I got that right, didn't I? And I'm going to just go ahead to share my screen shortly while we start with the welcome and introductions. So if you have friends, folks that are looking to join in, please feel free to invite, share the link, let them know that this session is currently happening, and so that they can, of course, participate, as much as possible from Trami as she shares her insights and knowledge on immigration. So this webinar, this immigration webinar is, of course, being delivered to you by NIROW, Nigerians in the region of Waterloo. And the topic, of course, is navigating the new IRCC changes, what international students need to know. And as you all know, there's been quite a number of changes that has happened right now in this space with respect to, immigration. And a lot of people are confused at this time, like, oh, is this the right thing for me to do? What do I need to do? How do I navigate some of these challenges? What are the strategies I need to embark on? And we have Trami that has, she's the founder and principal consultant, and she has offered her time to ensure that we have all the knowledge that we are seeking at this time. So I'm going to move on to first oh, that's moving quite fast. Sorry. I'm going to share the agenda. Yes. So on the agenda, we have myself, my humble self, Cindy Ofune, the communications director on the NIROW group. And we're going to move on to talk about the land acknowledgements. And then I would introduce the speaker. And then Trami would dive straight into the presentation for today. We're going to have a session, of course, for Q&A. So if you have any questions and answers, please feel free start to put your questions together. And then, of course, we'll go straight ahead into the closing remarks. Again, as you join in, feel free to use the chat session to put in your name, tell us the location you're joining from, and let's, create some chatter there in the comment section, okay? All right, so I'm going to go straight now into the land acknowledgements. As we all know, Nigerians in the region of Waterloo, NIROW is situated on the lands within the Haldeman Treaty of 1784, a formally ratified agreement acknowledging 6 miles on either side of the Grand River as treaty territory belonging to 6 nations of the Grand River. NIROW serves a region that is located within the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Chinotan, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. This territory is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum. We acknowledge the enduring presence, knowledge, and philosophies of the indigenous peoples. We acknowledge the continuing accomplishments and contributions indigenous peoples make in shaping the Waterloo region. We are committed to understanding the impact of settler colonialism on the indigenous experience in order to envision and co-create collaborative, respectful paths together. And okay, there's some interruption coming here. I'm going to fix this shortly. In order to envision and co-create collaborative okay. This is obstructing my view. Technology can be funny. Respectful paths together in mutuality and reciprocity. So this is the land acknowledgement. And of course, NIROW being situated on this land, we always ensure that we respect the lands and of course the indigenous people as we progress and ensure collaborative and respectful community. On the next screen, I'm going to go ahead to introduce our amazing speaker. Trami, of course, is a legal professor, program coordinator, and regulated Canadian immigration consultant. She's passionate about creating access to quality legal services as well as education. Today, Trami operates her own immigration legal firm called Dharma Immigration Solutions. She also oversees two legal programs at Conestoga College, where she teaches several areas of law, including immigration and refugee law. When she's not supporting her clients through their immigration journeys or in the classroom with her students, she's usually volunteering with food security courses or spending time with her husband and two busy toddlers. Wow. That's quite interesting. And we're excited, of course, to have you here on today's platform. So, a few housekeeping items just before I hand over to Trami. I want to request that we all please mute our devices. We encourage you to turn on your cameras. Please turn on your cameras. We don't want to see your black tiles. We want to see your smiling faces, okay? Please use the raise your hand icon to speak. Do not interject a speaker. And again, all opinions are valid. So we preach respect, and we like to also practice what we preach. So please, as we delve straight into the session today, I request that we, as much as possible, pay attention and we abide by the housekeeping rules, okay? Any questions at this point before I hand off to Trami? All right, fantastic. Over to you, Trami. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and thank you so much, everybody, from this very warm welcome already, and also just for spending some time with me this evening on your Saturday. I really hope that I provide you with some helpful information, some tips to help you in your immigration journeys, and maybe inspire you to look into new pathways that you didn't look into before. So, with that said, I'm going to just share my screen, and while I'm doing that, I would love to continue on with what Cindy has started and just ask you to continue to pop in the chat, as some of you have already, and share what your name is and where you're coming from. I will be asking you once again, but I'll check the chat when I do check that. Alrighty, guys, so let's just jump in to the presentation today. So, as you know, like Cindy has said, there are so many different changes that are happening at the IRCC level. And I get questions all the time from clients as well as students that I teach that are graduating. And I hear that there's a lot of individuals at NIROW who are in similar positions or in other positions where maybe you're already at that stage where you're looking into PR or options for your family members to reunite with you. And with the caps that are happening and changes that are happening, we just want to make sure we're on the right path. So I'm happy to be here and to hopefully facilitate that conversation. And I try to gather as many of your responses in your surveys. Thank you so much for popping in your questions. And I provided this agenda for today, guys. So the first thing is very briefly an introduction to myself, but I also want to hear more about you as well. Just very briefly, it's going to be low stakes, just to chat in the box, or sorry, use the chat, and I'll check the box for your responses to get to know you a little more. We're going to start off with the first topic of pathways for visitors. Visitors who are in Canada who are hoping to, one, extend their stay or change their status from visitor to student or worker. There are some questions about that. The next one is a very hot topic right now, understandably. It's IRCC changes for international students, and I've grouped that with PGWP, postgraduate work permit holders, or for those who are looking into applying for their PGWPs. Lots of questions and lots of changes around this. The next hot topic is spousal open work permits. Again, some changes around this from IRCC just this year. So happy to answer some questions about this area. Then potential PR pathways. I've decided to select express entry. Got a lot of questions about that from your surveys. PNP specifically for Ontario's provincial nominee program and what is called the Rural Community Immigration Pilot. So I can, as a professor at the college level, I can honestly create, and I have created courses that span across one semester just on one of these, but I'll try my best to really give you a good overview of these so that you can have a stepping stone for when you look into these for yourselves. And then an overview very briefly of the in Canada refugee claim process. I did have some questions about this. This is a very big topic as well. And then not to take too much time away from your opportunity to speak and pose your questions. We're going to have some time for Q&A as well. Cindy, at any point we feel like we could take a 10-minute break, please interrupt me. I do apologize in advance if it does seem like a lot of information. Feel free to plug your questions in the chat. We'll revisit them at the end for Q&A as well. Alrighty, so with that said, again, very brief introduction from me. Cindy provided such a great and very generous intro to myself. Like she said, I'm a legal professor. I've been at Conestoga for going on 7 years now, and I oversee and teach in 2 of their legal programs. The first one is an undergraduate legal assistant program. The second one is much newer. It's called the Immigration Refugee Case Management Program that I help lead in developing because there's such a need for that. Currently, that's a graduate level program, and I very much enjoy teaching. I enjoy working with students and connecting them with industry, and of course, providing details like I am to you today. So my other profession is, of course, immigration consultant and legal advocate. I started working in the immigration space since 2012, and in general in the legal space since that time. And my own practice focuses primarily on family sponsorship, express entry, PGWP, visitor visas. I do specialize in some other areas as well, but those are 4 of the main areas that I focus on. And as Cindy has pointed out, I'm also a mom of 2 kids. If you're a parent yourself, regardless of what age, I'm sure you can understand with everything else that you have to juggle, it gets busy. So they keep me very busy. There's my son and my daughter. They're 2 and 4 currently, and they keep myself and my husband very busy. So that's me in a nutshell. So enough about me. I would love to get to know more about you. So as Cindy has asked, where are you joining us from today? I know NIROW, we are mainly focusing on the KWC region, but it is the weekend. I know someone, I think it's Faye, if I'm pronouncing that right. They are joining us from Windsor. So maybe you're joining us from a different area of the province or even country if you are traveling this weekend. And I'm just going to check the chat right now to see where we're all joining from. Rosemary's from Kitchener, so just down the way. I'm joining guys from my Waterloo office today. I'm actually living in Cambridge, so not too far away from some of you. Rita from Toronto, Sule from Waterloo. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Kennedy from Waterloo, CA from Waterloo. So it looks like most of us are also joining from the KWC region. So thank you for participating.
There's
And
Rita from Toronto.
yes, that's right. Cornwall as well, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question is, how would you describe your immigration journey so far? In just one word, I know it can be really hard, but sometimes I just like to ask this question even to my own clients, just to see where you're at. Are you feeling optimistic? Is it nerve-wracking? Has it been stressful? Where are you at right now with your immigration journey? Are you confused? Um, Yummy is joining from NL. Is that Newfoundland? Or am I completely misreading that? Yes. Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. There's a time difference there too, so I'm sure. So thank you again for taking the time. So if you're not comfortable with answering that question, that's totally fine. My last question is favorite Canadian dish or any local cuisines or restaurants in the KWC region that you would recommend to anyone in this call. We'd love to support local businesses and restaurants. Bowmanville, I see. From Manitoba, oh my goodness. Conchi Queen, I've heard lots of things about that, Rita. Journey is somehow clumsy. Yes, I get that. There's so much, it's confusing. Michael, yes, I get that too. Nervous and confused. Yes, Theodora. Thank you for sharing this and just being completely transparent. I really do appreciate that. A couple more minutes and then we'll move on to our first topic if anyone else wants to share. Sul or Sule, nervous and scared. Yes, I can absolutely understand that as well, especially with the current climate of things, particularly since early 2024. Stephen or Stefan joining from Waterloo, thank you for joining us on this Saturday evening. Okay, so as you're just plugging in your responses to this, I will be going back to check on what you have shared with us. I'm just going to go ahead and move along here so that we have time for the Q&A. Okay, so very briefly, legal disclaimer. I have to do this for all my webinars. Is just this legal thing that I have to provide. Is this is an info session, not to be confused with a similar consultation type of presentation where I provide tailored legal advice. So this is more for the questionnaire, question and answer at the end. I can't get into detailed scenarios, but I'm more than happy to provide more general information and potential pathways. So that is more so the legal disclaimer part of it, but I'm sure most of you understand where this is coming from. So this is more of a general info session, and I'll provide you with other ways to get connected if you do want to speak about your current situation. Alrighty, now with that out of the way, let's dive into pathways for visitors, specifically already in Canada. So there are three main pathways, everybody. And please, Cindy, if you see that we're getting a little bit confused, pause me at any point. It is a lot of information, as we all know. It can be so daunting, immigration stuff in general. So feel free to pause me at any point. I'm happy to re-explain things as well. So visitors in Canada can extend your visit. Sometimes you can also change your status to a student, and sometimes you may no, you will want to change your status to worker. There were some questions about how can I do that. So that's what I am going to talk about in this current part of the presentation. So extending your visit is the most realistic option for many people. If you would like to remain in Canada longer, you'd like to go sightseeing, other places that you haven't had a chance to see yet, want to remain in Canada with your family, you will apply for what is called a visitor record. Now, if you have never extended your stay before, you will have not had a visitor record ever in your life in Canada. This is not the same as your visa. The visa is what you use to fly to Canada when you first came to Canada, presented your papers to the visa officer or the immigration officer at the airport. Then they let you into the country. They allowed you to stay for up to 6 months. When you're applying for a visitor record to extend your stay, you're basically asking for the same thing. The officer will will determine if you can stay for another up to 6 months maximum. It's up to their discretion based on your eligibility and any other criteria they're looking at, mainly in regards to admissibility. So have you committed any crimes? Are you medically inadmissible? And then they will either grant you or refuse your request to extend your stay. How do you apply? I always tell my clients you should try to aim to apply at least 30 days before your expiration of your current stay. But the general rule is just at least just apply before your current status expires. It could even be one day before, but as long as it's before that current status expires. Otherwise, you will need to leave the country and apply for another visa. Okay, so that's how to extend your visit. You apply online for this. Changing your status to a student, you can study in Canada from a visitor as a visitor if the program that you want to study in is 6 months or less. It can also be in English or French language course, so picking up a new language. You will not need to apply for a study permit. For any other program, in most cases, you will need to leave Canada and apply for a study permit from outside of Canada. Okay, so there are visitors who will want to apply for a study permit. They will need to leave Canada. Others, you can stay here. Just make sure everyone, as I've said, most stays are only up to 6 months. So make sure the program that you are applying to is doable within 4 months, for example, so you don't have to leave the country before the program ends. And then changing your status to a worker. IRCC, you may have heard, is no longer allowing visitors to apply for a work permit from inside Canada. This is new. So in case this is a point of confusion, this is now ended since February 28th of this year. There are some exceptions, and you will know if you're the exception. The first exception is that you are a spouse of a Canadian citizen or permanent resident who is sponsoring you for PR. Okay, you are a refugee claimant, or you are a work permit exempt worker. So that means you do not need to apply for a work permit to work in Canada. Examples are you work for the clergy, or you are a worker under a trade agreement. So you will know in most cases if you're exempted. Okay, so these are the three pathways for visitors. And as you can see, for most of us, we will need to leave the country to apply to change to student or worker. Feel free to plug any questions down in the chat and we can revisit this at the end as well. Now let's move into international students and PGWP holders. Again, big topic right now. I want to highlight some recent IRC's changes and tips. So let's dive in. Some three main points here, guys. So there are pending changes to PGWP eligible programs. So I'm going to make sure that I explain this very clearly. So you may have heard On June 25th, the Canadian government decided that they're going to change the list of which programs are actually going to be eligible for a postgraduate work permit. So you may already know that only some programs now are eligible to for the PGWP. So on June 25th of this year, just a few weeks back, they announced that they are going to remove 178 fields of study from this list, and they're going to add 119 new fields of study, and it will focus on healthcare, social services, and trades, because we want to bring in people to fill in those labor shortages in those areas. You may have heard these are the in-demand occupations. But then just a week later, July 4th, before that long weekend for the States, IRCC decided, actually, never mind. We will not make this change happen until early 2026. I just want to bring this up because it caused so much confusion and anxiety for people who were applying for a study permit. So people who apply for a study permit for a program, and before June 25th, it was on the list of the PGWP eligible list. But then on June 25th, the government said, actually, no, that program is no longer on the list. Those people were very anxious, right? Especially if they submitted the application for a study and they already paid their legal fees, processing fees, and now they have to change the school, perhaps the program. But then on July 4th, they said, actually, never mind, this won't happen until early 2026. We don't know what early means. Again, this is only for people who are planning to apply for a study permit in the future. If you're in your studies right now, or if you're applying for a PGWP and your program is still on the list, that's fine. It does not affect you. But if you're looking to apply for a program in the future, just be mindful of this. Check the classification of instructional program, or the CIP codes. There's a list of all the programs that are right now eligible for PGWP if you search it up on IRCC. Okay. Now, with that said, if you're applying for a degree program, bachelor's, master's, or doctorate, forget everything I just said. It does not affect you. The PGWP eligible programs only apply to people who are studying in non-degree programs, so college level. Okay. If you have questions about this, please enter them in the chat at any point as well, because like I said, there was a lot of confusion when Canada decided to make this change and then take it back, okay? Then there's a language test requirement for PGWPs, which is a relatively recent requirement. So if you're about to apply for your postgraduate work permit and you're graduating from a degree program, make sure that you've taken a recent English language test or a French language test that is equal to CLB7 in all the 4 areas of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Any other university program, so a graduate diploma, for example, from a university, it's going to be the same. If you're graduating from a college or polytechnic or another non-university program, your benchmark is CLB5 or NCLC5, okay, in all 4 areas. If you're applying for a study permit, my last point here, if you are aware, there are proof of funds that are required for every single study permit application. They update and revise this every September. They are updating it again for applicants who are applying for a study permit on September 1st or after of this year. They will face an increase specifically. So this is a table, everybody. If you're applying for a new study permit on or after September 1st this year, this will be the new table. This is found on the IRCC website. So depending on the number of family members that are accompanying you to Canada, or that is in your family that are dependents, they are going to be included in this part of the application. Okay, so if it's just you, you're going to be looking at $22,895 to demonstrate, and it's such a big jump from what it was in 2024. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so here are my tips and reminders with all of that said. If you're applying for a postgraduate work permit, please apply as soon as possible. Yes, you do have 180 days, so that's approximately 6 months to apply for that after you graduate. But here's the thing, not everybody's study permits are still valid after 6 months from graduation. So I'll always advise that you aim to apply for your study permit for your PGWP before your study permit expires. I always try to aim for that, because if your study permit expires, you will need to apply for restoration. Restoring your status is not impossible. It does happen, but the thing with that is that you delay your process a little bit. You have to pay additional fees. If you're hiring a lawyer or consultant, you have to pay legal fees as well. So just aim to apply before your study permit expires. Now, if 90 days pass after the expiration of your study permit, you still have not applied to restore your study permit to apply for your PGWP, then you'll need to leave Canada and apply from abroad. So that adds another hurdle to you getting to that postgraduate work permit, getting more Canadian work experience, and eventually, hopefully, using that for PR. Okay, so my main advice, try to apply before study permit expires. You don't have to wait, everybody, you don't have to wait until you cross that stage at convocation to apply. You can apply, of course, when you receive your degree or diploma, but most likely your college or university will provide you with the official letter confirming that you have successfully completed your program well before your convocation date. So the second you get that, go right ahead to your PGWP, start applying from that point. Or check if you have received your official transcript or a copy of the transcript. You can usually download this from your school's website, and that will be sufficient to get that ball rolling and hopefully, again, apply before your study permit expires. My next tip, everyone, is remember with the language test, make sure you take the right language test. I've spoken to some people who unfortunately took the wrong language test and then they missed that deadline of their study permit expiring. So they have to wait until they're in restored status to apply for PGWP. What I mean by that is that you will need to take the general language test. So this will not be the academic one that you took when you applied to study in Canada. Another reminder, everybody, is even if you took the general one, but say you were in a longer program, or it's been a while since you've taken the language test, they're only going to be valid for 2 years from the date of the test results. Double check the language test results when you apply for PGWP. And finally, provide yourself with lots of time to study. So say you've never taken a general language test and you're in your last semester, you know you're supposed to apply for your PGWP, you need those test results when you apply for your PGWP. So you can't submit your application until you have those results. Okay, so make sure you plan for that time to do that. So remember, I just said you can't take the academic versions of those tests. This is the most recent table that indicates all of the eligible and acceptable language tests for English and French. So there's CELPIP, as you can see, it's a general test. Same with IELTS, PTE. I did get a question in one of the surveys about which one is better. There is no real right answer to that. It's really more about where you're at in terms of how proficient you are with English. CELPIP is known to be the Canadian English language proficiency. So they're very much focused on the Canadian English language, if that makes any sense. So that's really great if you've been in Canada and you've been studying here and you are proficient at a level that you think will get you to CLB5. CELPIP is going to most likely get you there. To that benchmark much faster, as opposed to somebody who is applying for a study permit for the first time and they're taking the academic one, CELPIP, if they're used to the international English language system, that may be a little more enticing for them to take because you may reach the benchmark more easily. So it really depends, once again, on your comfortability with either or types of English systems and ways of speaking and writing. But for the most part, they're fairly similar. Okay, so tips and reminders, final tips and reminders for this portion is please take advantage while you're in school to use the school legal services. As an international student, you are paying so much to study there. What's included in your tuition usually includes paying for the international advice from the international advisors at the international office. So I can speak to Conestoga's international office. They will provide students with the opportunity to attend webinars or in-person info sessions on how to pull together your PGWP application. So if not, still take advantage and book a meeting, I should say, with an international advisor while you're still there, while you're still paying for the tuition and the services. Because otherwise, once you graduate, you will have to pay out of pocket for a legal representative to give you essentially similar advice. Okay, so that's it for that portion. Again, I know it's a lot to digest with a lot of IRCC changes. So again, let me know if you have any questions in the chat. So also open work permits. I did receive a lot of questions on this as well. There are a lot of recent IRCC changes. I'm going to provide a general overview. Understandably, this is another point of confusion as well because of the changes that have happened just this year. So first, before we dive into this, what is a spousal open work permit, also known as a SOWP? So SOWPs are provided to eligible spouses and partners of certain temporary workers and students. So essentially, say you are a temporary worker here or a student here, and you want to have your partner or spouse join you. So in most cases in the past, that wasn't too much of an issue. But since January 14th, 2025, IRCC has applied very strict limits on who is eligible for the SOWP. And this, in my personal opinion, really goes against our family reunification aspect of immigration. So it does exclude a lot of families, unfortunately. So what you need to know is spouses of students in master's programs. And the master's programs have to be at least 16 months or more. So that's 2 academic years. Doctoral programs or certain eligible programs such as Bachelor of Education, Bachelor of Nursing, Bachelor of Engineering. Those are the types of people who would be eligible to apply for an SOWP if their partner is studying in any of these areas. So this is not an exhaustive list, but I did want to include everyone that Bachelors of Ed, Bachelors of Nursing, and Engineering, as you can see, they all speak to occupations that are in demand right now. So those would make your spouse or a partner potentially eligible to join you in Canada while you're finishing up your studies. If the spouse is a spouse of a temporary worker, they may be eligible if the foreign worker is employed in what's called tier 0 or 1 jobs. These are really high level jobs. They're senior executive positions or senior management positions. And there are some who may be eligible if they're working in select tier 2 or 3 occupations that have labor shortages. So this may sound like a totally different language if you haven't taken a look at what's called the National Occupational Category, so NOC. So if this is something that is a little bit gray to you, tier 0, 1, tier 2, or 3, I just ask, you can even just Google it. It will give you a breakdown on the what's called ESDC website. Or even if you type in IRCC, it will link you to the place where it breaks down for you what tier 0, 1, tier 2, or 3 means. Okay, so basically, Canada has a way of categorizing all types of jobs, and one way is through tier 0 to 4. There's also workers. The workers also must have at least 16 months left on their work permit at the time of the application being submitted. So this also excludes a lot of people. You still need to have 16 months left on your work permit for your spouse to join you. So you should be applying for that as soon as you know that they're eligible. Before this change, everyone, dependent children. So say you had a child who could work here, say you have a 17-year-old child who's still dependent on you and you want them to be with you while you study and they could get a part-time job somewhere. They're no longer eligible to do that. Okay, so that is on the SOWPs. Now we're going to jump into economic PR pathways. I did get a lot of questions, like I've said, about what are my potential pathways after I'm done graduating, after I'm done working temporarily here. I'd like to stay here. I'd like to apply my skills and learning that I've done in the past X amount of years. So I'm going to give you an overview of 3 potential pathways and programs. And then again, this is very high level stuff, everybody. I'm not including a lot of the stuff because like I said, I could create a whole course or program in any of these programs. So if you have more specific questions, plug them in the chat and I'll try to answer them at the end. So express entry, if you're not already familiar, everybody, express entry is one way to get permanent residence in Canada. It is not a program. It is a selection system, and specifically, it is to attract certain skills and skilled workers that Canada is really needing at the moment. And it's called Express because we need these people in ASAP. And we want to bring them in as soon as possible based on their skills and their training. So it's not a program, it's a system. Under the system, there are three programs. There's a Federal Skilled Workers Program, Federal Skilled Trades Program, and what is called Canadian Experience Class. I'm just going to assume that most of us are familiar with these three programs, if not at least one of them. A lot of students are familiar with at least a Canadian Experience Class, because which one that one includes or is open to people who are already in Canada, who have at least 1 years of full-time work experience and in the last 3 years. So typically, most students who are on their PGWP or at the end of their PGWP have at least accumulated that full-time work experience to qualify. Then just recently, everybody, not to make things even more confusing, but in addition to these three broad programs, Canada said we need to actually zero in on 6 very specific jobs and areas that we need more people to fill in, because we need healthcare and social services. So they create a category for that. There's trades, education, there's French, STEM, which stands for science, tech, engineering and math, and there's agriculture and agri-food. This list of categories, everybody, changes all the time. It used to have transportation. Transportation is no longer on here because it's no longer targeted. We do not need that many skilled workers to work in those areas, in that particular area. So we're focusing on these 6 right now. So what that means, everyone, is if you're interested in express entry, I want you to look into first these 3 programs and look at the eligibility criteria and ask yourself, do I qualify for at least one? If you qualify for at least one of these, then you may be selected based on this, or even better, based on one of these categories. Because if you have any of these skilled work experience, it's really in demand. You may be selected faster than when they do a draw for any of these 3 programs. So again, it may seem a little confusing. I'm happy to re-explain as well. Tips and reminders, if you are interested in applying for express entry in 2025, just in general, if you didn't know already, you do not apply to any of these 3 programs directly. You apply by creating a free online profile that will ask you for your work experience, language test scores, age, and other things. Basically, they're looking at you and seeing what do you have to bring to the table to make you eligible for this express entry. Because remember, they're looking for certain skilled workers. Then, based on what you put in your profile, everyone, you will be given a score. The score will be out of 1200, which is nearly impossible to achieve. So, if you don't get anything near that, do not panic. The score is called Comprehensive Ranking System. People call it the CRS score. Okay. My general advice when you plug in your information to right now in 2025, aim for at least 500 to remain competitive and increase the likelihood of being selected for PR when you're in the pool. So when you create this online profile, when you hit submit, you'll be entered into this pool of all the other people who have applied or have created their own online profile, and you'll be ranked based on your score. Okay. So 500 right now is the minimum that I'm telling a lot of people who are looking into express entry. Another update on this, everybody, July 7th, 2025, so just pretty recently, there are some programs that require you to show proof of funds, just some programs. And that has increased. So if that is you, you will need to update your profile no longer than July 28th. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of what that is. So not everybody needs to show proof of funds. Canadian Experience Class, if you're applying for that and you say, I'm eligible for this, you do not need to show proof of funds. Why? Because you can show that you are financially secure and have, are most likely going to be economically established in Canada. Because again, most people who qualify under this one, they're already in Canada or have had at least 1 year of the work experience gained here. Federal Skilled Trades Program and Federal Skilled Workers Program, some people need to show that proof of funds that is increasing, like I said, in this month. And it's for people who do not have a job offer lined up. So they will need to show that they have the money to settle here when they are selected for PR. So that number is right here, everybody. If that is you, it has been updated on July 7th. And again, depending on how big your family is, this is the new table here that you will need to show in your express entry profile. Okay, so you can log in, go to the settlement funds area, and put in the number of funds that you currently have, and hopefully it's above this or at least this. Okay, so you have until, I believe, July 28th, 2 days from now, if I'm not mistaken, to update that if you haven't already. Okay. Tips and reminders for that, everyone. Once you submit your application, so once you submit your express entry profile, I should say, right, and you're given a score, know that you can still increase your score until you are selected for PR. By that point, it won't matter because you've already did everything right, hopefully, and you've been selected for PR. But if you're, for example, you're at 490 and you're looking at every single part of your profile and seeing, okay, how can I increase my score? You can't increase your score from your age because your age is your age. Language test scores is usually the first thing that people look at. Go back, redo a test, language test, because even just an increase in a little bit in the language, in your language proficiency test, I should say, could really increase you to the mark that you really want. So this is where most clients do come to me, because if you feel like you don't know where to go from your score, you can't get there, usually that's when you look for more professional advice. But I always ask you to try to look at your own profile. You know yourself best. Once you have still been selected. So hopefully you get selected from the pool and you receive what is called invitation to apply. This will be found in your inbox. So check all of your inbox, the junk inbox as well, because once you receive that ITA, invitation to apply, you have just 60 days to prepare your entire PR application. 60 days goes by really fast. I sadly have seen a lot of people, not any fault of their own, it's because delays in certain things, that they cannot submit the application on time and they miss that boat. And that is an outright refusal. Okay, so while you're in the pool, make sure you have everything. So if you have foreign education, make sure that it's been given an equivalency to the Canadian education a level as well, because you'll need to provide that documentation in the pool. You don't want any delays there. Your language test scores, like I said, have to be at least 2 years, at most, I should say, 2 years old when you submit them. And so all of those things need to be prepared correctly and completely. General advice, use the online IRCC CRS calculator, everyone. So not everyone's great at math. But what's really great is the CRS score calculator will help you, give you an approximation of where you are. I always tell clients, triple check, quadruple check your eligibility. Don't just do an approximation of, I think I'm at CLB5 for language. I think, plug in exactly where you're at, because if you receive an application, invitation to apply, I should say, and you submit your application, and if you can't prove that you're at 500 CRS, maybe you're at 495, they will refuse you if you don't meet that score that you needed to be selected. Okay, so just make sure you have all the documents to back up your score. Okay, so express entry, how do they select you? So every couple weeks, maybe you've been keeping track of this already, every couple weeks, the Canadian government does a draw. It's like a lottery. We really don't know what's going to happen next, and no one has a crystal ball, but I've been hearing some promising things, and I'm really hoping that we continue on this path if you've been following. So express entry draws means that every couple of weeks, the Canadian government will do a draw on one of the three programs. Remember, Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skilled Trades, or Federal Skilled Workers. We haven't seen those broad categories in a while, but we're now starting to see Canadian Experience Class. This is really great if you are we're an international student here, or you have at least 1 year's worth of work experience here, and you qualify for this, because as of June 10th, you can see everybody. We have the Provincial Nominee Program, then Canadian Experience Class, Provincial Nominee Program, Canadian Experience Class, So PNP, CEC, PNP. We're hoping to see that continue so that more people can be invited. Now, if we just take a closer look here, everyone, June 12th, they did a draw for CEC. 3,000 people were invited for PR, and the lowest CRS score was 529. Remember, I told you my general advice right now is try to get 500 as your score if you're around that area. And then the next one was 521. It decreased by a little bit. The next one, the most recent one, July 8th, it was at 518. We're slowly seeing that knocking down, and we're hoping to see it to be 500 eventually. The most recent draw, as you can see here, was on the 22nd, and there were 4,000 people invited. This was for healthcare. So these people would have had to be eligible for one of the three programs first to be selected. But in their profile, they said they have work experience related to healthcare and social services. Okay, so I'm just going to continue on from there. So we're just going to move on now into the provincial nominee program for Ontario. Cindy, I'm just going to check in with you. I know I've been talking quite a bit. I don't have too much to go, but do we want to take a break, guys, or do we want to just keep going and get to the Q&A? Well, how are we feeling right now? Because I know that was a lot of
Yeah,
information.
I think we should keep going.
Okay.
Yes, we should keep going, and at the end, we'll then open up the floor for questions and answers. I see in the
Oh,
chat as well. Keep going. Let's keep
okay,
going.
sounds good. Sounds good, guys. Okay, and again, if there's any gray areas, happy to clarify at the end. So OINP, Ontario Immigration or Immigrant Nominee Program. The first thing I just want to say to everybody here, professionally speaking, OINP, I usually tell my clients it should not be your only resort. It should not be your only focus. And the reason is because if you're not already aware, there haven't been many draws at all. A few months ago, we just had one or two draws that happened in early 2025. And if you're on a PGWP that's expiring, time is of the essence. We don't want to narrow you down to just one pathway that maybe won't even be viable for you while you're on valid status, okay? So now, with that said, Ontario, as you may know, as in addition to all of the other provinces and territories, they can select their own permanent residents based on your skills, based on our needs as a province, okay? And how we do that is we look at people who, when they applied for express entry, or if they applied for Ontario directly, have submitted what's called expression of interest. Basically, they're expressing they're interested to settle in Ontario permanently, and if they meet the eligibility criteria of one of these 9 streams, you see there's so many pathways in Ontario, then they may be selected. But like I said, there hasn't been a draw in quite a while, and and the draws have been very sad, if I'm being honest, in terms of numbers. So if you're an international student who's really eyeing this stream, I would like for you to have at least 2 options, this and another one. Okay. So there are 9 streams. What I want you to remember is that, again, it's very daunting. The first thing I always say is use the online tools. On the Ontario OINP website, there is something called a stream selector tool. It's kind of like the CRS calculator. You put in your profile, they will help you determine if you're eligible. Again, it's an approximation. It's not a guarantee that you're eligible, but it helps you because 9 streams is a lot to look into. So the first 3 I have here, you need a job offer. So foreign workers stream, including that international student stream. In-demand skills stream, you need a job offer to qualify at all. Then there are people who completed a master's or PhD from Ontario that will qualify for that. And then these last 3, everybody, you may automatically qualify for if you put your profile into the express entry system and you selected Ontario as a place that you would like to reside in permanently. So if you happen to select Ontario and you meet any of these 3 or a couple of these 3 last ones here, then you may be selected to apply to Ontario as a PR. Some updates here, everyone. And I did get a question, a couple questions on this. Is what was that update about for the new employer portal earlier in July and late June? So as you may have seen, there was some buzz around a new employer portal. This is going to affect only those people who are applying to these first three. So because those three need a job offer, which means they need an employer to help them get PR in Ontario. So before, how it was that anyone who was interested, they needed to submit an expression of interest first, and then the employer goes in and then the process continues. Now it's all employer led. The employer now needs to go into the Ontario, so the OINP website, and go into this new portal that they've created, put in all the job details, all of their own details as an employer, then the worker or the applicant needs to submit their expression of interest to that employer there. Okay, so if you were impacted by this, it meant that your expression of interest that you had submitted before this new portal came into place, it was automatically taken away, it was automatically withdrawn. Basically, it disappeared. Then uh, it forced everybody to work with their employer to say, okay, employer, I need you to go into the system. Can you create this employer portal? Make sure it's up. Then I can go in and submit this expression of interest. Otherwise, I won't be able to put my name in the hat, so to speak, right? So that was the whole update on that. The other final update on this is that now they're going to be in-person interviews if you're selected. Um, so it won't be guaranteed right away. If the Ontario government is a little bit wary, or if they have some doubts, or they just have some questions about your profile in terms of eligibility, they may request you to come into for an in-person interview to go through that eligibility criteria. Okay, so that's OINP. Again, key takeaway, guys, make sure you have something else lined up besides OINP. And then finally, there's the Rural Community Immigration Pilot. I had a couple questions about this as well. So as you may have seen, to meet the labor shortages of different 14, particularly 14 rural or countryside communities across all of Canada, the Canadian government decided to launch this pilot. It's not necessarily new. We had a similar one previously, but we launched this particular one just this year, late January. And here's the general eligibility requirements. You must have a valid job offer from what's called a designated employer from in that community. So you don't have to be living there right now, but you need to have a designated employer who will provide you with a valid job offer. Then you must have at least 1 year, 1,560 hours, that should say, of related work experience in the past 3 years. So I've had people who have related work experience from abroad. We can use that for meeting this part of the requirements. Okay. You need to prove your language ability. So there are specific requirements for the RCIP as far as the language requirements. And then you need to prove that you have enough money to settle in that community if you are selected to move there. Because the assumption, everyone, is that you don't live there currently. In Ontario, there are, I believe, 5 communities that are participating. And it includes North Bay, Sudbury, Timmins, Sault Ste. Marie, and Thunder Bay. And my first tip to everyone, if you're interested in this, is to explore the current jobs that are available for each of these communities by visiting the IRCC website. There you will see that there's a drop-down list. You can select whichever community that you're interested in. These are just the Ontario ones. If you're open to moving across Canada, then look at all of the 14 communities. I know that Timmins was a hot place. So I also will say this, there's not a lot of space. So they're only taking a select number of people for this entire pilot. Okay, so it's a very small percentage of our immigration goals to settle people in these communities. But if you feel like you can meet these eligibility requirements, it's still open right now. So do explore that as an option as well. And finally, this is our final topic, and thanks for hanging in there with me, guys, up until this point. And it's the refugee process from within Canada. And I say within Canada because if you're not familiar, the refugee process inside Canada and outside Canada are two very, very different processes. And I'm just going to give you a very general timeline and some requirements. The refugee claims and asylum area. Again, I could spend a whole day just talking about this. So we're really just going again high level, and happy to go through some more questions about this as well if you have them. So the first thing I just want to note, everybody, because there are, maybe you've heard of this already, maybe you already know, there are a lot of bad actors in immigration. And just like in every other field, not everybody can or should represent you as a refugee claimant. So I just want to give you a tip here. So the first thing is, if you're looking for an immigration consultant, there's actually, if you Google um, find immigration consultant, there's a whole directory on the what's called CICC website, and I can put it in the chat afterwards. Look up the person's full name, see if their license is still in good standing, and then after that, look to see if they have this designation, RCIC-IRB, if you want to submit a claim for asylum. Because if they're just RCIC, they cannot represent you in that case, okay? But if you're going to hire an immigration lawyer, they can represent you at all levels. So just a note to you so that you can make sure that you're working with someone who is actually eligible to represent you. So for you to be eligible for making an asylum claim, you must have what is called, this is a legal term, a well-founded fear of persecution or face danger of torture, a risk to your life, or risk of cruel and unusual treatment or punishment. So this may sound like all the same things. There's actually very specific definitions of what these are, and that's where the RCIC-IRB or the immigration lawyer can look at your case and really see, do you qualify for this, or are you eligible for something else in Canada? Persecution, that's a big word. I always want to make sure everyone knows what that means. It means that you're facing mistreatment based on 5 specific things. One of 5 specific things. There could be more that you're facing. Your race, your religion, your political opinion, your nationality, or because you belong to a certain social group. So this could be because of your sexual orientation or because you're part of a group of women in places where women are facing persecution, for example. So that is just a very general overview of eligibility for making an asylum claim. There are also many reasons why you may not qualify. The first one being that you have been subjected to removal order. So, for example, you've been ordered to be deported, or you've faced an exclusionary order. Okay, so you will know if this is something that you're facing. Or you are now inadmissible due to criminal or human rights violations, or you've made a previous refugee claim in Canada that was refused. There's so much more. Again, refugee claims, they're so sensitive and we want to make sure they're done right. So I always advise that first you do your research on your own because you can do that without any cost, right? And then everything's on the IRCC website. If you're really stuck or if you want to proceed with it, then just do a thorough check at yourself and ask yourself, can I put this claim together by myself or do I need help of a representative? So next steps. Say you do decide to submit your claim. It's all online. Most applications for PR, temporary residence, are now online if you're unaware. Once you submit your claim, you will be invited to and be interviewed by an IRCC immigration officer. They will review your eligibility. They will review your claim because in your application, everyone, you'll be asked to provide this very extensive form that asks you to tell them, why are you being persecuted? How is this happening? Are there other people in your home country that are facing the same thing? What kind of proof do you have, right? It's very exhaustive. The type of supporting documents you need to be very strong. So another thing, everyone, is officers will always ask themselves and will ask you, do you have another place in the entire country to move to relocate before you even think of coming to Canada and staying here instead? So that is called IFA, in other words, internal flight alternative. They will always ask this either at this stage or at the final stage when you're at a hearing. So after this interview, everybody, say the officer is satisfied that, you know what, we believe you meet the eligibility requirements, they will then hand your case off to what is called the Immigration and Refugee Board. This is where you and or your representative will be scheduled for a hearing where you'll be able to present um, your case. Most of the time, the cases are not oral proceedings; they're all submitted through writing. It's only some cases where you need to appear before the board, and most cases now it's through Zoom. Just to give you an idea. So if you meet the requirements there, they again will bring up the internal flight alternative. Then you'll be approved. If not, you'll be refused. So that is a very general overview of what that process is like. So yeah, so I just wanted to leave that there. And that concludes my very lengthy bit. I'm just going to see the time now. We're right at 6, so we have 30 minutes for Q&A. Hope that gives us ample time, everybody. Feel free to ask your questions. Cindy, I'll leave it to you how we want to do this. If we want to just have it through the chat, or if we want people to go on the mic.
Thank
So,
you so much, Rami. That was very well timed. I don't think I'm that that was just fantastic, really.
oh, good. I'm so glad.
I
I'm
thought
so
I was gonna be
glad.
doing the timekeeping for you, and then you were just, perfect and apt with it. So I'm just gonna go straight into the Q&A session because I see
Great.
that lots of folks have lots
Please.
of questions. I'm gonna start right from the top
Yes.
with the very first set of questions that came in, and then we're gonna open up the floor for others to, unmute and speak if they want to or ask more questions.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
So for the very first question, someone asked, what is the charge rate for restoration of status? Yemi, that was from you.
Yes.
When you say restoration of status, I believe, Trami, you understand what he's saying, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
do you mean the IRCC processing fee? Because I think I did talk about that. So I didn't talk about how much it would cost. So
Mhm.
if it's IRCC processing fee, and I always want to do a thorough check, they always increase it. So let me double check here, guys. And you can do this too, to make sure that you have the processing fees. There's a whole website of lists. I do this all the time to double check. So for restoration, to extend your stay,
Mhm.
to restore is right now $389.75.
Oh.
So that's why I always tell a lot of new grads who are about to apply for this is try not to, you're paying so much already for tuition, try not to have to be in that situation, but you got to do what you got to do. It's better than having to go back home and apply. So I hope that answers your question on that.
All right. Thank you so much for answering that one.
No, of course.
The second question was from Sule. Please, can you explain the startup visa route for someone on temporary status in Canada? Is
Yes.
this a service that you render as well?
Mhm. Startup visa, thank you. So no, this is not a service that I render, but I'm happy to refer you to people who would be happy to represent you in that. So I will be very transparent about this. Number one, it's a program that is really scaling back as far as how many we're admitting under that program. And then in relation to that, we have fewer representatives who are taking on those cases as a result, because there is a certain threshold that you have to meet to apply for what's it's called the SUV. So I'm not going to go into the eligibility because I'm not an expert in that area. Unfortunately, I do apologize. But again, happy to refer you to a couple folks that are very reputable in specifically that application type if you're interested.
All right. Thanks, Tremi.
You're
So feel
welcome.
free to reach out. I think she had
Yeah.
our contact
Oh,
information also on the page. I
yes,
think I saw
yes.
that.
Let me
So,
go to that part here so that I'll
okay.
just leave it open.
Yeah, I think we should just leave that open on the screen.
Yes,
We have
let me just
53 people right now on the call.
okay.
Ms. Shark said if your PGWP was issued according to the duration on your passport, can
Mhm.
someone extend the PGWP even though it is not stated in the current permit? So basically, he's asking if he can extend.
Mhm.
afterwards?
Yes, great question. So for everyone who's listening right now, hopefully you're paying attention. This is honestly, guys, the only situation where you can extend your PGWP, the only situation where you can extend it. And as you know, you can only apply for PGWP once. So if you decide to do like a bachelor's or a master's after this, you have to figure out what to do after that, that second Canadian education or third education you're doing. But second in Canada, I should say. So you can extend it if it's because your passport expired before the expiration of your PGWP. So yes, in short.
Okay, someone is asking to know the proof for a study permit extension, proof of funds.
Oh, proof of funds. So are you talking about the new proof of funds?
So this would particularly relate to if the person wants to extend. Will it be the same as the original proof of funds that you shared with us?
Um, so I would need to know more about why you would be extending your study permit. So is it if it's the same application, if it has to do the same application as the initial one for your current studies, I should say, it should not be treated as a new initial application, if that makes sense. So it really depends why you're extending it. If you taken a leave, or are you doing a new program, or submitting a new study permit for a new program?
Okay.
Okay.
Rashak, if you want to expatiate on that one, you can put that in the chat. Someone is also asking, that's Yemi, I want to apply for study. This person is in Canada and wants to know if he needs to have the 22,000 card in his account
Mhm.
since he's already in Canada and is just switching to study from PGWP.
Yes, you do, unfortunately. Yeah,
Okay.
so that is actually something that some people whose PGWP is expiring, they've come to me and they said, well, I don't really know what to do next. I want to study, but I don't have the funds. And that's usually what bars people, unfortunately. So whether you're in Canada or outside Canada and you're applying for a new study permit on September 1st or after, if you'll have to provide proof of funds.
All right. Quick question from Ido was, please, how much do I need to apply for extension? Okay, I think we already asked that question. Wants to know how much proof of funds basically for extension of study permit for a second program. So I think we talked about that. For anyone who has received ITA for OINP, what's the typical process duration for a decision to be made?
It's not too long, from that point on. As to whoever who, asked that question, it's between from what I've gathered from some of my, other colleagues who have done OINP for the recent draws, it's between 6 to 8 months, but don't quote me on that, for the whole process. So, um, so it's from the point of receiving the ITA to submitting it to getting your PR. So
Okay.
I hope
Yes,
that.
please don't quote me on that.
Yes, don't quote me
You
on
can
that.
always check the processing times on their
Yes,
website anyway, so
yes,
it's always best to just
yes,
go
yes,
with that one. Okay.
yes.
All right. So AY is asking, I'm a recent graduate who wants to apply for PGWP and SOWP Outland together. I don't have a job yet. Can the offer letter be sent at a later date through the web form?
So you want to apply for a PGWP for yourself and your spouse at the same time?
Yes.
So my question is, why do you need the offer letter for the PGWP? Or is that so what can you repeat that, Cindy? The offer letter?
Yeah. Yeah, it says I don't have a job yet. Can the offer letter be sent at a later date? So I think he's
Okay.
assuming that an offer letter needs to be included in the application. Is
No.
that correct?
No, that's not correct. So PGWP, just a reminder, everybody, is an open work permit. So that means that you do not need to have an employer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can work for anybody as long as you meet the qualifications and the eligibility after you graduate. Then you can. That's the point of it. Is that Canada wants you to go find an employer, hopefully gain that work experience that's related to your studies, and then be able to apply for express entry, for example, and apply for PR.
Okay. Thanks, Trami, for that answer. If you have still have questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. AY, Dami is asking for a PGWP holder. Is it possible to apply for extension of work permits? I think you already answered that one, that it's not possible. So I'm going to just skip.
Yeah.
Festus has a very long one. Oh,
Okay.
I'm going to try to summarize. So he's currently enrolled in two post-secondary institutions. First program is at a DLI and will be completed in August 2025.
Oh,
Um, Once he receives his official completion letter, he will technically not be recognized as a student. However, the second program is still ongoing and would complete in October 2025. So he's requesting for guidance on how to navigate the situation.
mm,
Specifically, can he begin his postgraduate work permit application based on the completion of the first program
yeah.
while continuing to attend the second program in October? He wants to ensure his actions align with immigration policies and it will not affect his eligibility status.
Okay, yeah, great question, Festus. So first of all, congratulations to you on just maximizing your time because I don't think I've ever come across this situation before. My first question is great. It's a DLI, the first one that you're graduating from, and just congratulations to you on completing that very soon. My first question to you is, are you enrolled in those two programs on a full-time basis? So remember, PGWP, there are some eligibility requirements outside of just being a DLI. So just make sure you look that up for that particular program. And there, with that being said, too, PGWP will you can apply for it after. I would always recommend apply for it. After your first program as soon as possible, so you can start looking for work as soon as possible. There should be nothing barring you from continuing on with the studies of the second program. But again, my question would be, are you studying full time in both institutions? Is the second one eligible for PGWP? If not, then by all means, make sure that you apply when you graduate from the first program. So that's just my general advice without knowing everything and without encroaching on providing legal advice, which I cannot do during this webinar, unfortunately.
All right, thanks for that answer, Tremi.
No problem.
Um, so I'm going to move on to, I think I can't count again. For someone who went to college for a 1-year course, how can the SOW be applied for, considering the PGWP is just 1 year?
Okay, so oh, I see. Okay. So I'm assuming you want your spouse to accompany you for while you're on your PGWP. So in most cases, it sounds like if you just did a 1-year program, you most likely will not be eligible. Um, Depending on, yes, I'm just assuming based on the length and duration of your studies. Now, if we just even go back, guys, I'll just go here. If we go back to the PGWP requirements, so everyone can just remember, get a refresher here, or spousal open work permit, I should say. Um, it is limited to people who are spouses of people in master's programs, and even then, it has to be 16 months or more. So unfortunately, if you are not studying either of these, and you want your spouse to be with you during your PGWP, I apologize. Sorry. For the special open, sorry, it depends on what work you're going to be doing. So, of course, you're graduated, you're done your studies. Now you're doing your hopefully 1-year PGWP in a tier 0 or 1 job or a tier 2 or 3 occupation, and because there's only 12 months on your work permit, then likely your spouse unfortunately will not be eligible. So, long answer, short, then it sounds like your spouse will not be eligible just based on the details you provided there.
Okay. All right. Another question was, is it possible to apply for study permit after PGWP? I think you already answered that it's possible. Only that you would not be able to apply for PGWP again.
That's
Okay.
right.
All
And
right. So I would skip that one, Tosi. Mo is asking, my 1-year PGWP has expired and currently on visitor record. I just received a college admission. Can I
okay.
apply for a new study permit within Canada? Yeah, I think I'm hoping to receive LAA from Manitoba after working for a year. I have an
Mhm.
EE profile already.
Okay, so you kind of have different routes right now, it sounds like. So either if you're gonna go study or you're gonna go through hopefully express entry if you're selected. And Alberta, it sounds like you said. So long story short, you based on this information, you will not be able to apply to study from inside Canada on visitor status. You're on visitor record. You will need to leave the country. And again, providing general advice here, but in most cases, everyone, you do need to leave Canada and apply from outside for a study permit if you're on visitor status, unless the program is 6 months or less. But it sounds like it sounds like it's going to be study permit required.
Okay.
So I hope it's helpful. Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
Mhm.
Foster is asking how much he needs as proof of funds to extend a visitor's record for a child.
Oh, I see. Visitor record. So proof of funds is really interesting for visitors because they don't give you the minimum amount of funds, everyone. There's no minimum for it. That's where it gets really tricky. When I first started, just to give you guys some insight, in 2012, when I first started immigration, we used to have paper-based applications, and for visitor records and visitor visa applications, they were this small. And then now, if we were going to do paper-based again, it would be like a huge file because it is honestly, in my practice, it is almost like submitting a PR application because we have to prove so much and they give us so little guidelines on what is sufficient income or what is sufficient funds. So um, there is no right answer for that. I always say every situation is different. Use as much as you can with whatever you've got. We can't make you any more eligible than you are based on your current situation. So if you have, if you don't think that your funds are that great for the next 6 months, then you'll have to find ways to prove that that you're still able to financially support yourself while you're here? Do you have some family members here to help you with your child? Or if it's a dependent child, depending on the situation, I don't know if I understand completely the situation, but regardless, if you're visiting Canada, it always helps if you're staying with family. That cuts out the cost of accommodations. It always helps if you're staying with them and they're providing you with money for food. So then the host can provide information on their income as well. It's not going to be the only thing they need. The responsibility is on the visitor themselves, if they're an adult, of course, to provide that. And if you are the visitor and you have an accompanying child, then you need to show, yes, proof of funds that you can satisfy the officer that you can provide for yourself and your child during your stay. So I hope that is somewhat clear based on what you have provided. If I misunderstood, please, you can re-clarify and hopefully I can answer it better.
Okay, I'm gonna ask two more questions and then I'll turn it over to Rosemary. Oh, I see she's already posted. Okay, so I'll go ahead to ask the question. First, AYE gave more information. He said the job offer is for SOW applications. That was the question with respect to saying that he was asking about the PG. He wants to apply for a PGWP and SOWP Outland, and he doesn't have a job yet. And he wanted to know if he can submit the offer letter at a later date through web form.
Mhm.
So this job offer is actually for the SOW application. So do you need a
I
job
see.
offer to apply for spousal work permits?
You don't, so the job letter is going to show, if I'm understanding this correctly, to show that you are eligible to have your spouse accompany you because you're working in one of those eligible tier, so tier 0, 1, 2, or 3, right? Jobs. So my advice, general advice is you need to have that upfront. That is not something that we can provide at a later date. It should be upfront as part of the documents we submit at the get-go. So
Okay.
because that's very much part of the eligibility, and we would hate for it to be returned or refused because of that. So I would suggest really trying to secure that job and then applying for the SOWP.
Okay. Thanks. Judith is asking if she can apply add her kids that are outside Canada to her postgraduate application, postgraduate work permits application.
Oh, you want to add your child to your application while you work here?
Yes, the kids are currently outside Canada.
Yes, that has happened. Yes, I have had some clients who have had their very young children accompany them while they are here in Canada. Especially, I have a few single parents who need to be with their kids here. So it is very much possible. What we do is if your child is of school age, for example, we apply for a study permit for them. If they are not yet of that age, then there is a process that they can accompany you while you're here.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So reach out to Trami for that one.
Yes.
Kennedy has asked, I applied for SWP for my partner and independent and dependent son. My partner was refused, but my son was approved. What are my options to get my partner approved?
So your son was approved for the SOWP. I'm assuming this was it before the law had changed? Because now no longer children are no longer allowed to apply for that. So let me just go back to that page, everybody. So also open work permits. So as you can see, everyone, we recently had that cap on the SOWPs, unless yeah. So for your spouse, without again encroaching on that area where I'm providing legal advice because it's very tailored to your situation, I would need to look. If it's not me, I would ask you to request the GCMS notes, if you know what that is. That's requesting the IRCC notes. So Google GCMS notes.
CMS.
And then you pay like a $5 fee, and you will get the notes from the officer that refused your husband's SOWP application. And then you can really, when you reapply, which that would be my general advice is reapply, make sure you include some kind of letter. I always include a cover letter in every single case, even the visitor visas, that even for someone who's staying for just a couple weeks, and you don't want to provide any doubts, or if there's anything that could, a previous refusal will always cast a little bit of doubt on the RCC officer. So I would make sure you put a cover letter together, get those notes, read through the notes, see why they had refused it. Maybe you already know that. Usually the refusal letter is very general. You won't get much from that. So that's my first step for you. And it takes about 30 days to receive those notes. So just give yourself some time to wait for that and then reapply. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, so I'm going to take one more question and I will turn it over to anyone who wants to speak. Steven says that his study permit expires this month. He's taking a second program that starts in September.
Great.
The college has withdrawn the program.
Oh
Is it
no.
permissible that I apply for the extension so I'm not out of status and I can use the web form to update the new acceptance letter when I hear back from the college? So when you hear back from the college, are they going to reinstate the program? Because you just mentioned it was withdrawn. I don't know if you want to speak on that, Stephen.
Yeah, Stephen. So you feel free to write more about that situation in the
Yeah.
comments.
Oh, he says he'll be getting a new program. So he's asking if you can go
Oh,
ahead to apply.
yeah. Yes, I would. You know what? So I this is why my suggestion for anyone who's a similar situation, myself working at the college too. This is unfortunately, as you may all know, happening a lot. There's so many cuts and suspensions and cancellations of programs, and it's affecting a lot of people just like you. If the college is already working around giving you or putting you in a different program, they should be also, I would reach out to them too and just let them know your situation because they're likely working with a lot of students in your position to provide you with the right supporting documentation for the next steps. So, without all the details, I can't really speak on what to do next. It also is a very nuanced thing. It's very new in general. So, I don't have the confidence to tell you, unfortunately, what the next step would be, Stephen. So, my number one thing at the moment, just in my experience as faculty, reach out to even your program coordinator. I'm program coordinator. If you don't know where to reach out to admissions, whoever it is that you've been corresponding with, and the international office. They are most likely, if they canceled that program or withdrawn that program, it's likely affected other international students too. And colleges are trying to reassign students if they have any interest in studying at that college. So that's what I would do, and they're likely going to have some information as to how you can quickly just bridge that gap, if that makes sense.
All right, fantastic. We had a couple of more questions drop in, so I'm just going to run through them.
Yeah.
Rosemary's asking if a full-time job offer gotten from a certificate obtained from a DLI college. She's asking if it can be if it's recognized as a full-time job and can be used in International Student Stream or CEC.
So no. CEC definitely no. You cannot use full-time work, unfortunately, during any parts of your studies during the during your studies as part of your application. It would be the work that you do during your PGWP.
Okay,
Hello, I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
Can I just ask the question directly because it's not my intention is not what was communicated. Okay, now thank you very much for this opportunity. This is really an insightful webinar. Thank you, Trami.
Of course,
So I have two
Rosemary.
questions. My
Mhm.
first question is this: for international student stream,
Mhm.
must it be if I study a course, must I work in that same field I studied for me to qualify for international student stream? For example, like the example I put, let's
Mhm.
let's say I came to Canada and I did an engineering course, but I got a job in another field. Can I use the job in another field in my international student streams application, or must it
Mhm.
be a job in the field that I obtained a certificate from in Canada? That's my first question.
Okay. Yes, that's a great question. So at the top of my head, Rosemary, if I'm being very, very honest with you, I can't remember for OINP, but I do want to double check that. So if everyone wants to follow me, we can do that together. So I don't want to give any wrong information. So I will do that now. And Rosemary, while I do that, feel free to ask your second question as well.
Okay, so thank you. The second question
Yes.
is this: can the full-time job offer gotten using, okay, there are career colleges. So
Yes.
let's say I am in Canada, I am doing a course in a DLI, and then I go to a career college and obtain another certificate while
Yes.
my study permit for the DLI is still active. Can I use that certificate from the career college to get into the international student stream?
That's a great question. So you want to use either or both? Is that what you're saying for the second
Ye-
one?
Yes, I know that the one from the DLI I can use, but I'm
Yes.
just looking at the one from the career
Great
colleges
question.
where I didn't get a
Yes.
study permit to study directly in.
Yes.
Can I,
Great
if
question.
I get a full-time, okay, this is it. If I get a full-time job offer
Yeah.
using that career college certificate,
Mhm.
can I use that full-time job offer as my Canadian experience class?
Great question. So here's my response to that, because I've seen mistakes about this. For the education part, I'm a little more privy to because there have been a lot of mistakes. It's more good. It has to be a DLI as far as I can remember for sure. An eligible Canadian institution is DLI. So just make sure not all private career colleges are. The second most important thing is it needs to be one of these undergraduate degree or diploma. If it is, for example, an undergraduate um, certificate, because I've had people who've tried to go through the stream, but they want to submit their undergraduate certificate. As you can see, there is no undergrad certificate. There's only college graduate
Graduate,
certificate.
yeah.
And made them inadmissible. They didn't realize until so long after that they were refused because they did not meet the requirements. So that's the next thing. Now, eligible Canadian institution, if you want to select, and you can follow me on this website too, everybody. Remember, all of this is available to you guys. That's why I always recommend doing this research on your own too. It's like doing taxes. You can do it on your own, or you can look for help. So depending on that college, Rosemary, you can go onto the OINP website, and as far as I'm seeing, most of the colleges seem to be um, seem to be public, but again, there are some private too that could also be eligible. So just make sure, go on the OINP website, and under the education area, if you're on your computer right now, you can look at the list as the one that I was just looking at. And then as far as your your employer requirements here goes. If I can just, let me see here, requirement. Okay. Full-time, 30 hours a week, application, scoring factors. So the employer, okay, study. I want to say based on this, the work does not need to be related to your education. But that said, everyone, if you're interested in OINP, there is usually a list of what occupations are in demand. So I'm working with some students right now who are on their PGWP and say they did a general business diploma. That's too general, and most business, occupations are not in demand. So they're pivoting to do, for example, a different trades occupation that does not require formal education, but maybe be in demand. Does that make sense? Because that's where the need is. So, and they are looking at OINP. So I just wanted to double check that before I said that out loud. So again, everybody, it's all on this website here. If you're looking at your own profile, I would definitely look into OINP. And then Rosemary, you're doing a really great job. I'm glad you're considering both CEC and OINP. And then I know we're at 6:30, everybody, so I don't want to interrupt Rosemary. I hope that that answered your question a little bit. I can take one more question too, Cindy, if there's another one that's been waiting around.
Yes, we actually have three.
Thank you.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, we actually have three questions left. I don't know if we
Go
have.
ahead.
If
Yes,
you
go
can
ahead.
spare us the 5 minutes just to take these three.
Of
We have Elvis who is asking options or steps in terms of advice for a student with just 1 year PGWP to gain permanent residence in Canada. What would you advise for him to do?
I advise the RCIP and also look into the Atlantic immigration program if you're open to working in and moving to the Atlantic provinces. Those are the New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. What's the other one? I always forget. There's Prince Edward Island, and there's another one that starts with an N. I'm just blanking on it. There's 4 provinces in the East Coast, and you don't have to be there right now. You don't have to be located there right now. Those are the two main programs that I have been suggesting to people, to look into. But it does require at least, for RCIP, at least 1 year of a related experience. So if you have foreign work experience, it's included in that. So just remember that too, okay? And apply to jobs in the RCIP as well as the Atlantic provinces so that you get someone to essentially support you to get PR in those areas.
Okay. Michael Aja is asking if he can order GSM notes for a TRV limited visit approval.
Absolutely. You can apply for any of the applications you submitted. Absolutely. That's your right as an applicant. So you can do that. Yes.
Okay, there's one long question. Please, do employers still issue LMIA?
Great question. Yes, they do. So even though that's a good question, and I'm assuming because you've been hearing that Express Entry no longer awards points for job offers. So job offers from employers are called LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment, guys. Basically, that's a document that says this employer has looked near and far in Canada. They put ads up. They can't find a citizen or PR to take on this job, so they need you. They need you as a temporary foreign worker to take it on. Here's the LMIA. Now, Express Entry used to award 50 points. That's a lot of points for somebody. And what used to happen was that people were paying thousands upon thousands for LMIA. That's illegal. Never pay for a job. Never pay for an employer to support you. That's illegal. There's always ways to go about it, and you risk yourself and your future when you do that. So please, even if you're desperate, if you feel like you don't have any other choice, you do have other choices, but don't pay for any of that. It's usually a scam, unfortunately. So all that to say, with that said, that's why they removed the 50 points. But there's still some programs in Express Entry. Yes, you still need a job offer. That's for federal skilled worker, federal skilled trades program. You do need job offers if you don't want to provide proof of funds. So I will leave it at that, but you just don't get points for it.
Okay. And I think for the plan B, he's saying is asking if he can put his wife and daughter on his own application for a master's program admission. So I don't know if you want to give more insight on that, Aziz, but
Yeah, I can actually.
Yes, Aziz, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. My wife was the one who studied 1 year program in Conestoga, and currently we are
Yes.
on postgraduate work permit, myself and her and our daughter.
Mhm.
So we are looking into getting employer that will actually give us LMI so we can extend our stay. So in case we didn't get that, and I'm
Mhm.
applying for master's program,
Yes.
so can I actually add my wife and my daughter on the application so they can stay with me while I do my master's program? Thank you.
Yes, yes, Aziz. That is a really good plan B. And just a reminder to make sure that your master's program is at least 16 months long. And then yes, you can have your wife hopefully continue working. She will be eligible as long as she meets other eligibility requirements, and she's not a criminal, she's not medically inadmissible. Of course, you can add her to that application.
oh,
Yes, I hope that's helpful.
okay. So I think this is the last question I'm gonna take just time so I can let Rami go. If you have other questions, her contact is on the screen, so please feel free to email her. She has a lovely and smiley face, so I don't expect to turn you back. So the last question I'm going to just take is how long does it take to get a reply from IRCC on my application?
Yes.
That's processing time, right?
Yes, Cindy, I wish that's a great question, and I wish I knew. And I'm still waiting. I'll give you some context here. I'm still waiting for some IRCC updates from applications I submitted for parents to attend convocations 2 months ago.
Okay.
So it's a huge backlog right now. I suggest bothering them with a web form and just bugging them for an update. So that's
Okay.
what I would do in the
All right. All right.
meantime.
Can you drop the OIMP link that you used to demonstrate
Yes,
the chat?
absolutely. Let me do that right now.
All
I'm
right.
just
So everyone, you have Trami's contact information. Feel free to
Yes.
take a picture, screen grab. Her
Yes.
email is Trami at damaimmigration.com, and her TikTok is Dama Immigration. Her website is www.damaimmigration.com. Please feel free to buzz her, to stop her,
Yes.
ask her all the fantastic questions you have.
Yes.
I'm
I'd
sure
be
she's
happy to
happy
help.
to answer you,
Yeah.
okay?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, if you can drop that link, would appreciate that. Trami, any other final words before we let you go?
No, thank you so much for just welcoming me into NIROW, the community. I'm just so happy to be here, provide you with some helpful tips. I know you've all got this. I know you're all on your own immigration journeys. Know that I just had such a pleasure to be working with you today. Hopefully, got some good tips again. TikTok is at Doma Immigration. So if you want more free, helpful advice, it's there, as Cindy was saying. But if not, I'm always here as well. Just reach out, email me if you need to. I'm in the KWC region, and I hope it's not the final time I get to connect. So otherwise, just email me. Thank you for spending your weekend with me. I really
Fantastic.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for a wonderful session.
Yes, thank
Her
you.
email, you said you can't see her email. Can you put up your contact information again?
Yes, let me do that again.
Yes, but thanks everyone. Hope you had
Yes.
a good session. It's Trami at damaimmigration.com. That's her email. So feel free to take a screen grab or just copy and save it somewhere, okay?
Thanks,
All
everybody.
right,
Have
Thank
a
I
you,
great
just wanted
Charlie.
to
weekend.
say have a fantastic evening. Yes, Trami.
Oh no, I said, just to have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
All right.
Charmy.
And
You're
thanks,
amazing.
everybody. Thank you so much.
Have a
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye for now, Wisdom. Bye.
Bye, Tromi. Thank you so much.
Bye,
That was
Ansel.
so
Thank you.
insightful. Thank
Oh,
you.
good. I'm
Thank
so
you
glad.
all.
Bye, Ansel. Have a great
Bye.
weekend, guys. Bye,
You too.
Alexander.
Bye.
Bye, Solomon.
Bye.
Bye, Theodora. See you soon.